Alright, so let's talk a bit about texturing XYZ and what's the big deal about it. So the concept of using captured images of skin or faces is not a new thing. It has been done for characters as long as I can remember. Projecting the captured images of faces onto a 3D model is one of the mostly used practice to texture a face. Hand painting is another way, but it is a skill that people have to learn and practice a lot to get to a good point. On the other hand, projection can be taught easily and it takes a really less time compared to hand painting to get a grasp of it. Plus, with most of the production being scanned based now, and no matter how sad it is, things are getting more towards using captured information rather than hand painting. With that said, there is one source that does the capturing of human textures the best way possible, and that is Texturing XYZ. And before any one of you wonder if they're paying me or not, the answer is no. I'm just a fanboy of the texture they provide because that's the best one you can ever find online and that is accessible to us. Also, I wanted to cover this because it has been taking over the industry. Not as much for games, but the VFX industry is bombarded with these textures. And soon enough, they can also take over the game industry. So it's a good idea to know what the future of texturing for games can be like, especially for faces and skin. So what's the thing that set these guys apart from other resources out there? So to go back, when faces capture started, it was just images of a face from 180-degree angle with a good camera. But the con it had is it had the specular information of your face and the ambient occlusion as well. For example, we can see this guy has all the specular information right here and has ambient occlusion and shadows, which was a pretty big deal because you had to clean it up a lot after projection, and it was annoying. That was also the time many of the games were hand painting their faces because it was much more efficient and better way. But after the introduction of the new kind of maps, things are moving back to using captured images again. So what's the new thing with this? The new form is called something cross-polarized images. I don't know what happens in the background and how do they extract it, but these kind of images has no specular information and really less ambient occlusion. That's pretty neat, right? But the thing is, many of the other website has those kind of information, but what set Texturing XYZ apart is their albedos. So albedos are the purest form of color information for a face or skin I have ever found online and I have ever seen. So if I open any one of these and if I show you guys, so this is what a cross-polarized image looks like. There's no specular information. Let's go back. There's no specular information, but there is a bit of ambient occlusion and darkness around the Fresnel of things. Stop changing. Never mind. So as you just saw, the thing I had to change is the albedo information. So this is the purest form I was talking about. These are their additional resources for textures, and that's how the whole set looks like. But let me bring back to the albedo and hope it does not change. This one does not have any spec, this one does not have any subsurface going on, this one does not have any ambient occlusion going on at all. Even the hairs have been turned to white. I think he has some white, but even the black ones have been turned to white again. So this is what Texturing XYZ does best, give you guys the purest albedo you can use. Their new ones, the new albedo or images they have are cross-polarized, but you cannot find albedo in these ones, which is a bit annoying and sad, but this is what it is. Their new maps do have some ambient occlusion going on. These ones, they work, but they are not as good as the albedo information they had before. I think they're supposed to release a plugin to make these guys same as these ones, but if you want the best ones, I would say their oldest ones are still the best one to project. Apart from these, they also have the surface information, which is which is the scan deformation of the pores from faces or other part of the skin that you can use on your sculpt. I cannot cover more about displacement as that kind of belongs to the modeling side, but what they did now, they actually upped their game and kind of changed the method of texturing faces as we know it. So what they have released is multi-channel faces, and this is like a complete new form of creating realistic face textures and surface detail. So these ones comes with everything packed together. So before you used to project displacement separately and albedo separately, then you had to extract a cavity map and try to match the pores with the color, and it used to be a bit not as realistic as these ones. So what these are, they are just, if I open this, so for example, this one is one of their cross polarized images and the only one I have right now. So what this has, it has the albedo. So this is a cross polarized image, right? And this is the albedo. You see all the shadow and the darkness are completely gone. And this is what I was talking about, the purest form of color scan deformation you can find. On top of that, now we are not projecting at all. You're just taking that in Photoshop and deforming it to match your UVs instead of your 3D model. So since we are deforming an image, we can also deform a multiple images at the same time. So we have a displacement in the same place as our color information. They have the whole info about using their maps in their website and they're pretty detailed. So there's no point covering those. But what I like to do is if I open ZBrush, so inside ZBrush, this is one of the models that's using their new maps. And all of the pores right here matches with my color information that is coming with them. So what I like to do before doing anything inside Photoshop with their new maps is, let's go to my texture map. Let's turn this off. Go to subtool. Let's make sure my poly paint is off. Paint it completely white. And now if I go with a standard brush, make it red, make the brush size small and paint, let's make it RGB and paint all the landmarks that I have, like top of the lip, bottom of the lip, the eyelids, the nasal fold, this plane change around the nose, the ears, the eyebrows, and a bit about the forehead. I can create a texture out of this poly paint, new from poly paint, and if I export this out in Photoshop, I can have a guide to deform these guys easily. So that gets rid of any guessing game that I have to play instead of just deforming it according to my UVs, because I don't know which kind of secondary information goes with my topo. But I do know these information goes along with my planar changes in my sculpt. This makes it a bit easier to use these new kind of maps. Plus one more reason I like these maps is they get rid of projection of texture completely. That's what I mean by a complete new form of texturing faces. And in some ways it's a lot better than projection. It just takes about 5 to 10 minutes to get done. So getting rid of projection is a bit good thing for a Substance user as well, because we won't be projecting anything inside Substance Painter. Because Painter's projection kinda sucks. We'll talk about it and we will talk about how to use it, but I will not recommend you guys to use Substance Painter projection as what it is right now. On top of all of this, one really good thing what these maps are also used for is they're a pretty good practice. By that I mean they're the closest color information to reality you can find, and they're the best resources if you want to learn hand painting the best way. So just pick one of these and you can try to replicate these guys. Same for these ones. So this is the one I projected beforehand, and this is the model we are using for texturing classes. So this can be my primary reference. This is done from a realistic scan, and I will be providing you guys with these images so you can use this as a reference, or you can pick your own, but This one is the closest I'm gonna get to the real life skin for this specific character. And that can be the best reference I have. So that basically what Texturing XYZ is. It's just a new form, not a new form, but a better form of projecting textures for faces, skin. So if you guys wanna get into it, it's worth it. They are a bit expensive, but as I mentioned, they have been taking over the industry and they can become a mainstream thing for games as well. So if you wanna get your hands on these guys, as I mentioned before in the last week, there is a bit of connection between CGMA and XYZ, where XYZ provides 15% discount to CGMA students. I will provide you guys with the information on the lecture notes, and you have to send them your proof that you have enrolled in the classes, and they will give you the promo code. Alright, so that was XYZ, but one thing I really like to tell people, just because we have access to all of these and just because they make our life a lot easier does not mean we have to move away from artistic skills of hand painting or hand sculpting. So that's what we are going to do next. We are going to jump into hand painting, and that's what our whole next 2 weeks are going to be about. Alright, so let's move on.